Welcome to City Pulse. I am your host, Maya Sarasahara, and today we're going to talk about a topic that is critical for all of us: water. Across South Africa, water challenges are a reality. But today we're going to be zooming into Kimberley, from muddy tap waters to water shutdowns and the open manholes that we walk by every day. But before we get into these issues and most importantly the solutions, let's take a quick look at what's coming up.
Quality of Kimberley's water best,
Immediately, when you hear the word shutdown, there's alarm bells going off in your head. So, which means it's a drop in feed, it means it's a drop in remuneration, so it means it's a drop in sales.
The fight, the war on gender-based violence need to be spearheaded by women. And we are part of this march because what is happening in our communities is no longer acceptable.
We're joined today by Mr. Thabo Mutibi, the communications manager at the Soplaiki local municipality. He is here today to help us understand these water challenges and how we as a residents can use water wisely. Mr. Mutibi, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Ms. Koro and the team, City Pulse, for hosting us as the municipality. Come and share information with the general public and on something, as you said, that is quite critical. And it's a matter of an everyday commodity that really makes our daily lives to happen.
Thank you. Since Mr. Mutibi, Kimberley has been, struggling with water issues for years, whether it's muddy waters or these water shutdowns, can you tell us what the root of the problem is?
Well, I think by and large, we will accept the fact that, we had what we call a backlog in terms of addressing issues of maintenance and aging of infrastructure. Just to give a bit of history, you'd understand that the time when, what we have currently as your two purification plants at Riverton that were constructed somewhere around in the 1960s or so. By that time, you had a population of about, say, 70,000 people that you were dealing with, and now we're very much above 270,000 in terms of your populace within the Salt Lake area. Apart from Richie, which is basically being supplied from the, what we call the Orange River. So our source here for water, where we abstract water from, would then be the Vaal River, which then has this huge pipeline. The bulk infrastructure pipeline starts from Riverton and runs all the way through to Kimberley. That's another 30 kilometers or so of pipeline that must at all times be maintained. And at some stage, when we realized that, so much of it came from our own coffers as the municipality. So plans were then made to say, how do you remedy this, and because you need to address the backlog in as far as your aging infrastructure, in as far as the question around how do you then embark on a full-scale maintenance, because the two can be separated. And then ultimately, there was a time when the municipality approached National Treasury and a proposal was put forward, obviously through the Department of Water and Sanitation, and then we were given the okay when our plan was actually endorsed. And then we had what we currently now have that is actually now sustaining our operations in terms of addressing the backlog and at the same time looking at troubleshooting. And then we had what we call now the budget facility for infrastructure. So that's exactly where we're at. Even over this coming weekend, work will be done at Rodopan. Now, in that area of Rodopan, we'll be addressing a major leak on that site. But at the same time, because of the work that was also done sometime in April, we were able to separate pipelines, meaning that if you address the 600 millimeter diameter pipeline, you don't have to close down the entire Kimberley, which was the case before. So that just shows, with the help of the consulting engineers that we've gotten on board, like GN Africa, Beacon has been a part and parcel of us driving the process. Even this weekend, we will be having the consulting engineers and EP02 as part and parcel of the companies that are subcontracted, local companies that will be able to drive the work. And efforts also that we've undertaken was actually to look at how we've been communicating. And so far, you can tell that from the April shutdown to where we're at now, that we were able to, inform our residents in advance and make sure that they are able to stock up, and at the same time also inform them in terms of operations that would then start off from the day when we start closing the taps to the time when we are able to again announce the fact that all matters have been dealt with in as far as the restoration of water supply.
Okay, so all these water shutdowns are to help within the long run. So are there any, besides the water ban, are there any water shutdowns that are going to be happening throughout the year? Well,
We came up with what we call part of the budget facility for infrastructure, the BFI, was actually to look at what is our plan. That is our plan to say, how do you remedy the situation? So through that, which is basically funded. So we have, that's about 2.5 billion that was allocated to Sorblaki. So, but then how do you apply and how do you use the money? Is that they don't give you all that 2.5 at one go. They will give you in as far as the amount of progress that you are making. And that's why at times Treasury would give an allocation and then withdraw. But in this instance where we are able to say we embarked on what we call the emergency phase. So the emergency phase has to look at all your critical issues. And that's why in April we said we've got 4 major leaks to address, And then we said, what is it that this phase or the work that we needed to undertake in April must address was for us to withdraw the nightly interruptions. You'd know that there were times that you'd not be able to open the tap at night because there was what we would call, in simple terms, water shedding. But we were quite successful in addressing that part. And so far, no, nightly water interruptions. And if there are issues that come up, we're able to address that because we have then the funds and everything that we have been looking at. It's, in other words, work has been undertaken. We've done investigative studies. We've done proper analysis of what it is that we need to address. And that's why the plan to say we have an emergency phase, we have a medium phase, and then we have what we call the long-term phase. But also what it does is that it addresses issues of how do you then do the upgrades at your purification plants, the two, the old and the new at Riverton. So that element has to deal with the issue of the quality of the water. So in that area, and you've seen it, even the private sector players such as Ekapa Mining, they are experts also in the area of water production and for their mining operations. And we were able to get even their engineers on board. And they came on board, assisted us, we worked on our clarifiers. And since then, you need to, what that helped with was to pump up our production at Riverton, at the purification plants. And through that, we were able then to push a lot of water through to Kimberley. And what does that do? Is that your reservoirs would then be at full capacity. And as we speak, even for this week, all of them are above 80% in terms of supply. So if there's a drop in your reservoirs, like you saw what happened sometime last year, November, when we had an emergency shutdown, it is because your reservoirs are empty and you're not able to supply water to households, to residential areas, the reticulation process. So we're pretty much, very much out of the hoods for now, but we'll come back probably to the issue that you raised to say we have all these burst pipes that are happening. How are we going about to address that? So all of the plans that we've looked at is indeed to say we need to be able to improve our bulk infrastructure, the capacity that we have at Riverton, pushing off the water through this pipeline all the way to the reservoirs. But then we also anticipated that we are going to have all these major leaks because the pressure is a bit high now in terms of reticulation. And the plans would then be there to address all of those aspects.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mutibi. That is a very good insight. But Mr. Mutibi, we'll dive deeper into this for just a moment. We'll take a quick break. Stay with us. Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. If you're just tuning in, We are in studio with Mr. Thabo Mutibi, the communications manager at the Solplaiki local municipality. But before we get into the conversation, we have spoken to local residents and local businesses, and we can hear about how this water crisis, or water challenge rather, has affected their daily lives. So let's take a look.
Immediately, when you hear the word shutdown, there's alarm bells going off in your head. So, which means it's a drop in feet, it means it's a drop in remuneration, so it means it's a drop in sales. So, also when it's planned, I mean, you can at least foresee and make provision and stuff. But when most of the time it's not planned, so then government workers are not at work, so it means that our payments are not coming through. If there's no water, the car wash can't operate, so there's no form of income for the business to generate in order to pay its employees or the running costs of the company. Immediately you'll see a drop in sales. You'll see there's no feed coming to the premises. So when people hear shutdown, they don't even want to go anywhere because there's no water. They automatically think if there's a shutdown, there's no businesses open because of you can't work without water. We had to invest in a backup plan as to our Jojo tanks, and so whenever the water's off, we always make sure our Jojo tanks are filled up and full for when it happens. Because, like I said, sometimes it will be planned. Most of the time, it's not planned. You will just come to work and there will be no water. So luckily we have our Jojo tank system that feeds water to the premises, to the car wash, to ensure that it goes on, and also for the printing, because it's on one place, for the printing to go on, in order for the employees to have water and work in a clean environment.
Mr. Mutibi, we've heard from the local businesses how this water challenge really affects them, and you spoke about a long-term plan that's going to help address these issues. Can you go deeper into that?
I think the other part to the entire difficulty that we've had in terms of supply issues has always been the part that we also acknowledge that this has brought about a serious inconvenience to a lot of businesses in terms of loss of revenue, and just some even indicating that they were basically struggling to keep going, and we've honestly tried our utmost best to, at all times, bring our different stakeholders on board, like your NOKI, Northern Cape Chamber for Commerce, those ones that to have a representation of business in all elements of the kind of consultations we've been undertaking as an institution. So precisely because we've been very much sensitive to the kind of inconvenience that a number of businesses have been, that many of them have been affected by the kind of troubles we've been having with supply. So that part also addresses our stakeholder effort in as far as where we've been, how we've actually taken business on board, and number of them have been sounded up in as far as our future developments. The beauty about it is that we had what we also then call the Solplaiki water workshop, where your NOKIs, all political parties, and a number of experts also then became part and parcel of the exercise to say, here are our plans, how can you input on those plans? And I would say at that stage, that was in February, we got a double thumbs up from all those stakeholders. We went into the April phase quite confident that we know what is it that we wanted to achieve. And whether we still now, between then and now, we're still in the emergency phase and we're addressing all of those issues. And I'm sure you can bear testimony to that. Residents of Kimberley can bear testimony to that, to say, in actual fact, there were strides made from the last so-called shutdown, that we had in April. And as indicated, what was it that we were targeting? What was the objective? Was to say to it, let us fix all our 4 major leaks. And at the same time, when we have, like this one of the weekend in Rotterdam, if you have that, what would be the impact? And as you've probably realized, is that the impact will be restricted to the Roderpan area. We'll have water tankering, tankers and JoJo tanks that will be placing at designated spots, popular spots within that very vicinity. The community of Roderpan would, even in consultation with their councillors, would know where to go. Where do they always access water in cases of such interruptions? So we've been able to look at our full plan and to say, from there on, where do we move to, once we've addressed all of these other issues. What we do know is that in November, we will again be looking at, because you understand that much of our pipeline, in as far as what happens in residential areas, that's where the kind of burst pipes that comes about and all of that, we're still working on old asbestos pipes, So what it means is that we need to then eliminate the asbestos pipes and also make sure that there is a replacement of the old pipes running all the way from Riverton to Kimberley. So in November, that will be now much of the critical work that will be undertaken for us to make sure that we replace those. So also what becomes critical is that we need to be proactive and say, what is it that is likely to go wrong? If there's a burst pipe, do we wait for something to be produced in Johannesburg and be brought all over to Kimberley? Or do we keep all of these kind of materials in store, so our approach with honestly and grown with or helped, what has helped is that the kind of challenges that we've had was to say, how do you learn from those challenges? How do you proactively look at eliminating all of these kind of frustrations? And indeed was for us to be in a position to act proactively. And I can safely say the magnitude of the kind of water interruptions, or what people normally call shutdowns, has actually lessened. And ours is to say the interruptions should not really be as severe as they used to be in the past. And with proper planning, it assists then to basically give that kind of guarantee. And as I'm saying, part of the work that was done in April was to bring us to a point where we can say we are going to work on the same bulk pipeline, but people will still have access to water. And that's why it's important even for this week to give people assurance to say our reservoirs at over 80% and above at Newton, so that even if we work on the pipeline itself, the bulk pipeline, there shouldn't be fears that there will then not be water in the CBD and your surrounding suburbia to the CBD of Kimberley.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mutibi. I'll stay on the topic of businesses still. Are there resources that the municipalities have to help these businesses out in terms of, and especially we saw with the car wash, they have major JoJo tanks. So is there resources that maybe local businesses are not aware of that the municipality can assist with?
I think in our case is that you can only incentivize those ones that want to come into Kimberley and say they want to establish, But by and large, we've always interacted with businesses and, your SMMEs. If all of them are properly organized, we always open our door and allow for those kind of interactions. We've even before we went into the shutdown, we even had interactions with religious groupings across, the different denominations, different religious bodies. We had those interactions precisely because we wanted all of society, all and sundry, to be informed, and that must also inform us as to how best certain bodies can actually assist. And in a number of instances, we had most of these mosques even around Kimberley that said, for residents that want to have access to water, they can come in and abstract water from our boreholes. And so we've honestly, when it comes to the issue of water, we've even had businesses that came on board to assist, like your Encores and all of that. So it's more businesses that would be coming our way to say they want to extend a helping hand. And we've been on a very, very sound basis. And hence, for those ones that have been severely affected, we've tried to say, whatever we do, let's do our utmost best, put our noses to the grindstone and make sure that we act fast In all instances where we have those kind of situations where there are interruptions, what we have on mind is that we cannot allow residents to go 24 hours without any supply. And hence, we are even able to affirm that this weekend we would be in a position to give temporary supply, temporary relief through having your JoJo tanks placed at certain spots, and at the same time have your roving tankers that would be moving within certain residential areas.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Muchibi. So basically, the project that is going to be happening in Wodaban, how long do you think, is it for the whole weekend? Is it going to probably stop major leaks as well?
Yeah, that we have a major leak, and so what we will then do is not at midnight, but 10 this evening, we will then start the work. And now again, it comes back to us saying we don't want the kind of work that we will be doing into the future to have a major impact. So you target the weekend because it means a lot of people will not then be at work. So we're starting tonight. The team will be working until Saturday night. And then we give the guarantee to say after 10 Saturday night, you will then be able to have running water from your tap, So what the promises that we've been making, sometimes you see the headlines of the paper a day before the shutdown. It says no end in sight for nightly interruptions. And then we give the guarantee to say, indeed, where we're at now into August, and then people can tell that, say, if we were able to live up to our promise, that we will then be able to withdraw the nightly interruptions. And so far, so good. Hence, I'm saying we are out of the woods. We are able to stick to our promises and make sure that we provide that constitutional obligation of making sure that residents do have access to it. We make sure that our indigent families do have access to what we have promised as your 6,000 liters of free supply, So we are a municipality that works according to that promise, and we really want to work very hard at restoring the sparkle, and we're happy that even from whatever you would be doing as members of the media, as a platform that shares information, it further helps to say, how do we deepen that kind of understanding to say, we've got a salt like that is both an authority in water supply. Elsewhere, you've got water boards. So it means you are able to attract a different skill altogether in making sure that you provide the water. But you've seen it, even with rent water elsewhere, there have been problems and so forth. But the entire responsibility of providing water rests on the lap of supply municipality. And so far with the skill that we have internally, and then probably in between getting your consulting engineers that are able to add some skill to the entire task that we have, it's that we are not failing in that obligation. You've seen it elsewhere. Every weekend or so, there's a story about another municipality, Cape of Storms. I mean, in Cape Town, there would be indications that there is no water. Elsewhere in Gauteng, there would be indications. So it's like you said, it's a widespread problem, all of municipalities. But the question then is, what is your plan? What plan have you communicated to members of the public? And that's what we are sticking to say, we've made this promise, we've communicated our plans, and we know for a fact that once we are done in this particular area, we'll be able to go to Richie and then also work on our purification plant at Richie. So the plan is indeed that we have applied for these funds. There was a particular grant given unto us, the 2.5 billion. And through that 2.5 billion, we're seeing to it that we are spending the money appropriately and for the purpose that it was allocated for. If you don't spend it appropriately, and then they say we're siphoning off monies, there will always be comebacks. There will be action taken against the municipality. And so far, so good. We are very much in the clean.
Thank you, Mr. Muchibi. That is something to consider. But we'll take another short break, and when we're back, we'll continue this conversation with Mr. Muchibi.
Lights, camera, learn. Welcome to Imprint, where we empower individuals from different walks of life through multimedia training that includes script writing, editing, and cinematography. we put our participants through a 2-month journey in order for them to learn skills to plan, shoot, and finalize their productions. Our aim is to transfer skills to our participants to enable them to be confident and competent in the audiovisual industry, and not only to be in the market, but to dominate it. Imprint. Radically bold.
We're back and we're continuing our conversation with Mr. Mutibi. Mr. Mutibi, there was a recent report by the South African Department of Water and Sanitation, and nearly half of all water supply systems pose serious health risks, and more than 2/3 of wastewater treatment facilities are on the brink of failure. On top of that, over 47% of clean treated water is lost through leaks or goes accounted for. With all of this in mind, is Kimberley's water still safe to drink?
No, absolutely. President of Noki was once on Radio Termaning, another platform, community radio, saying that the quality of Kimberley's water best, So what we also try to do is maybe also to give, the kind of indication of what happens on a daily basis, that there's everyday sampling of our water because you get all these reports about contamination of the Vaal River system, outbreak of this and that, but and then the perception is very much that what then comes through the system would be contaminated, but hardly do you get as to where is the problem at. But the guarantee indeed that one can give in terms of issues of water quality would be the fact that we do random testing within the system itself, meaning at different points, at different localities at any given time. And then on a daily basis, we keep records of what the kind of water quality is. So that kind of everyday testing, whether it's for bacteria, for this and that, happens on a daily basis, and those records are provided even to the Department of Water and Sanitation at any given time, should they require such. And so in certain times, you find that there is a burst pipe, and then obviously when there's a burst pipe, there's mud that seeps into the system, and then somebody would open and then say, no, what do you call it? There's muddy waters and all of that. And then also the issue of residue, So that residue, sometimes it's harmless. It's nothing that will kill you. It's just that as water moves through the system from one end to the next, so just open up, let it run a bit, but the guarantee is indeed that it's safe water.
Thank you, Mr. Mutibi. But we've also noticed that there's been a rise in purified water businesses.
Absolutely. You're being hoodwinked. I'm sorry that I'm sounding as if I'm killing the business or so, but many a times you find, and I'm sure I'm not seeing the label because probably you don't want to give free advertisement to these guys. But at the end of the day, you need to ask yourself, but taste, and is it not exaggerated? Is it not exaggerated? What kind of guarantee do we want to, or is it maybe just a statement of some kind that we make when we serve bottled water? I would think it's just a statement. Yeah, probably just a statement of some kind when we serve bottled water, or you want to give the guarantee to the next person that I did not, fiddle with your water. It's when you open up that cap, it's still safe. I don't know. Many people would know as to why do they decide to serve bottled water. Is it for safety reasons? You consuming water that you've been given to by the next person? It could be. I'm just saying. But at the same time, ours is to say, if you drink tap water, if you have a bit of doubt and you probably want to give yourself a reassure yourself, you just boil it and then drink. Yeah. When you boil your water at any given time, there's no threat. Absolutely. But I still just maintain that it's a maybe a fashion statement.
But it is funny because of this rise of purified water businesses, it brings the notion of maybe the people don't trust the municipal's tap water, So does it not affect?
It means somebody like myself in my communications, I need to go back and apply my mind and say, how do I get a team to bolster the effort in terms of spreading awareness and then having experts to talk into that, and probably have people that will model our tap water and say, no, I can do this for free. So get the Noki president who can speak into it and say, look, 100%. 5 people from what we would call from professionals in this particular area that can basically give that kind of confirmation to say, indeed, at any given time, our water quality is the very best.
Thank you so much, TV. Would you like to talk about the project that has been running for the open manhole? I read an article on the World Cup bulletin.
Open manholes, as in, if you're probably talking about what we do address as your everyday or now the burst pipes that we do get, it's so much of the pressure that's in the system, because once the pumping and the release of the water into the entire system, the entire network, it means somewhere in between where you have these asbestos pipes, they're gonna give in, But then again, it's the question of, do you have a plan to address those? And we have a waterworks team. We've given them now a new fleet, so there are no excuses. If there is a burst pipe, water can also be reported as a fault. Remember, so our communities are encouraged at all times to interact with our team at the call center and report such. And our waterworks team will forever be combat ready to go out and address those kind of leaks. And you've seen it a number of times that even in the CBD, we have those. Throughout our different residential areas, we have those. But what becomes of utmost importance is our ability to respond on time.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mutibi. You have given us a lot of insight today. Any final thoughts or advice to give to our viewers?
I think it's again the guarantee from our side as Salt Lake to say, if you have a situation like the Roodepan one of this weekend, what is that we're doing to address that situation? Do we have plans? Solid plans are in place. We've been able to bypass the system at Midlands in Roodepan, where we are able to say, if you are going to work on the 600 millimeter diameter pipe, the entire Kimberley must still receive water. And that's exactly where we're at, to say you reduce the impact to a certain area, but at the same time, the area must still be able to receive water. That's exactly in terms of our emergency support plans, in terms of having water tankering. But generally to say, are we getting out of the woods? Where we were at last year, are we in a better position now, considering the effort that was undertaken in April to where we're at now? And then I'm sure we'll get that kind of an endorsement from residents of Kimberley to say, indeed, there is a different posture on the part of Salt Lake Municipality in addressing this very critical commodity called water. And we very much responsive to our constitutional obligation and making sure that we basically provide clean, drinkable water. Ours is to say the guarantee of food security. Water security must be there at any given time. And we cannot have intervals where residents would be going a whole 24 hours without water. That can never be the case. We must act fast. Our waterworks team must act fast in addressing issues of pipes at any given time. And at the same time, we must carry on with our plans to make sure that this 7-year plan that we have must be implemented, and we must see to it that we reduce the impact of our kind of so-called shutdowns that we've had over quite some time. And I'm sure if you go back for the last 3 months or so, we can really talk about the strides that have been made since the last shutdown.
All right, thank you. But before we say goodbye, it is Women's Month, and our community-based group Operation Fiela has led a march against gender-based violence and drug abuse. Let's take a look at what happened.
Today we gathered here at the Galeshewe police station. We marched today with the community of Galeshewe, and the purpose of today, it was because we've seen a lot of killings that have been taking place in our province, and we see more rapes, more domestic violence that is taking place, and less arrests that are being made. And also we've been seeing that the drug lords are becoming more than the police. So we've been calling to say that police need to be increased, and also serious steps needs to be taken against the guys who've been abusing women, and the perpetrators that have been raping children and women. So we hope that our grievances will be heard and drastic steps will be taken after this.
My name is Sipiwe. Good afternoon. Melissa George, and I'm from the organization named Women Waging War on Gender-Based Violence, Abuse, Inequality and Poverty based in the Northern Cape in Kimberley. The purpose for us joining the community march today is that as women, we believe that the war on gender-based violence need to be spearheaded by women. And we are part of this march because what is happening in our communities is no longer acceptable. The purpose of today's march is to sensitize the SAPS, the Premier of the Northern Cape, and all other departments that what is happening on the ground is no longer acceptable and the community is drowning. So gender-based violence is influenced, and femicide is influenced by all these other factors like drug abuse, because the Operation Fiela that we are supporting today, it is an organization that knows and reports crime and knows where the drug dealers are, where the weapons are, where the abusers of women are. But no one is coming to save us because all these cases are reported here, but we don't see the change being translated on the ground as community members. So we are here to register our voices in the month of August, in the month where women need to raise their voices to say that we are here, we need to be counted, we need to make a difference and play our part.
Thank you, Mr. Mutibi, for joining us today. For Women's Month, do you have anything to say?
Well, I would say the question of capacity building, quite critical, because once you become more informed as a woman, you get a better grasp or understanding of your rights as a person, because it's an issue of human rights. At the heart of women's rights is the issue of human rights. And with human rights comes your ability also to be able to stand your ground. And if you're able to stand your ground in protection of your human rights, you'd be able to take your life to another level in terms of your economic empowerment, self-development, self-cultivation. And we cannot grow an economy if we have not mobilized our women folk, So it becomes quite critical to say, we may have plans as government, we may have plans to grow the economy as business, but that very vital grouping of society being Abu Mama, our women, if they do not have the ability to participate in this economy, then we are not going to see what we are aspiring for.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mutibi. We hope to have you back on the show, but that's all for today's episode. Until next time, I am your host, Masero Sokhoro. Follow us on social media. Stay involved, stay informed. City Pulse, diverse voices, one community.